Hello and welcome to the Photography Instructor Show, the podcast for all things photography and filmmaking. I'm your host, Saurav, a passionate content creator and a photography educator dedicated to helping you master the art and craft of visual storytelling. Whether you're a beginner, eager to learn the basics, a seasoned pro looking to refine your skills, or somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. Each episode, I dive deep into techniques, tips, and the latest trends in the industry. From lighting and composition to editing and equipment, I have got you covered. Plus, you'll hear inspiring stories and insights from industry experts and fellow creatives who share their journey and expertise. So, grab your camera, get comfortable, and let's explore the fascinating world of photography and filmmaking together. This is the Photography Instructor Show, where learning meets creativity. In this episode today, we are dividing the most fundamental part of photography, that is, the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle can seem extremely intimidating at first, but I have got you covered. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how it works and how to use it to create stunning images. Let's start understanding the exposure triangle. Alright, let's start with the basics. What exactly is the exposure triangle? The exposure triangle is basically a visual tool that helps photographers understand how these three crucial things, which is aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, work together to control the exposure of an image. Think of it as a balancing act. Each of these three settings impacts the light entering your camera, and changing one setting often requires adjusting the others to maintain the same level of exposure. These three elements impact not only the brightness of your photo, but also factors like sharpness, motion blur, and the image quality. Now let us break it down each one in detail. The elements of the exposure triangle. Let's start with aperture. Aperture is basically the opening of your camera's lenses through which the light enters. It's like the pupil of an eye, which dilates or contracts to control how much light hits the camera's sensors. Aperture is generally measured in f-stops like f2.8, f5.6, f11, and so on. So what do these f numbers mean? A smaller f number like f2.8 means a wider aperture, allowing the more light to come in. This is great for low light situations, but it also creates a shallow depth of field, perfect for portraits with a dreamy blurred background. A large f number, like f11, f16, means a narrower aperture, letting in less light, but giving you a deeper depth of field. This setting is ideal for landscapes where you want everything in sharp focus. Now let's have a quick recap. A low f-stop is equal to more light and a blurred background. A high f-stop means less light and a sharper background. Isn't it simple, right? Next up, let's talk about shutter speed. Shutter speed refers to how long your camera's sensors is exposed to light. Think of it as a curtain opening and closing. If the shutter opens for a longer time, the more light hits the sensor and the image is brighter. If it opens for a very short time, the less light comes in and the image is darker. Shutter speed is usually measured in fractions of a second, like 1 by 100, 1 by 20, 1 by 30, 1 by 40, and so on. Now, a higher, faster shutter speed, that is 1 by 1000, for instance, is ideal for freezing motion. Perfect for action shots like sports or wildlife photography. And a slower shutter speed, say 1 by 30, 1 by 10, 1 by 5, lets in more light, but can cause motion blur, which is great for capturing movement like flowing water or light trails. Let's have a quick recap. So, a fast shutter speed freezes action, while a slow shutter speed creates motion blur. And remember, Slow shutter speeds can let in more light, but may require a steady hand or a tripod. Finally, let's talk about the ISO. ISO measures your camera's sensitivity towards the available light. In simple terms, it's the setting that tells your camera how hard to work to capture light. A low ISO, say 100 or 200, means the camera is less sensitive to light, ideal for bright sunny days. Higher ISOs like 1600, 3200, 6400 and so on make the camera more sensitive, which can be helpful in low light conditions. But there's a catch. Increasing the ISO also increasing the amount of noise or grains in your images. So if you're shooting in low light, bumping up the ISO will help, but it may also impact the image quality. Let's have a quick recap. To wrap up this section, low ISO is less sensitivity to light, ideal for bright conditions and high quality shots. High ISO, more sensitivity, great for low light, but can add noise to your image. How the exposure triangle works together now. Since we have broken down each component individually, let's talk about how they would work together. The key to mastering exposure is balance. Changing one setting usually means adjusting one or both of the others to keep the exposure just right. Let's study with an example. Let's say you want to take a portrait with a beautifully blurred background. So you open your aperture wide open to f2.8, 1.8 or even below. This lets in a lot of light, which is very great, but now your image might be too bright. To compensate, you could increase the shutter speed or lower the ISO. Each setting affects not only the brightness but also the overall look and feel of your image. Let's take another example. If you're shooting at a nighttime scene and want a balanced exposure, you might start with a high ISO to let in more light. But remember, this adds noise. You could counter this by setting a slower shutter speed to capture more light, but then you might need a tripod to keep the shot steady. It's all about finding the right combination for the scene and the style you are after. I have a bonus tip as well for you in this episode. Now let us take some practical tips for using the exposure triangle. Alright, let's dive into some tips that help you practice and master the exposure triangle. Using aperture priority or shutter priority mode. These are semi-automatic modes, lets you control either aperture or shutter speed while the camera adjusts the other settings. It's a great way to get comfortable with one setting at a time. Start with a balanced setting. When you are unsure, try starting with an ISO around 400, a mid-range aperture like 5.6 and a shutter speed around 1/125. Then adjust each setting based on your lighting and creative goals. Practice in different lighting. Try different lighting conditions to understand how each settings affect your exposure. Take the same shot at various settings to see how aperture, shutter speed and ISO impact the final image. Embrace this learning process. Mastering the exposure triangle takes practice and patience. Experiment with each element to see how they change the look and feel of your overall image. And there you have it, an introduction to the exposure triangle. Remember, photography is much about experimentation as it is about technical know-how. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel in controlling your camera and achieving your creative vision. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Photography Instructor Show. I hope you found it informative and inspiring. Remember, the journey of mastering photography and filmmaking is a continuous one, filled with endless possibilities and creativity. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback will help me grow and reach more inspiring photographers and filmmakers just like you. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn for more tips, learning, and updates on the upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep capturing those amazing moments and crafting your unique stories. This is Saurav, signing off from the Photography Instructor Show. Keep creating, keep learning, and keep inspiring.